Ladies and gentlemen, this is internet personality Vangelus here with a review of the Fansproject Protector Armour. And you can see that it doesn't really do much on its own. It's a little bit of a... it's a box. It's the Guardian. I should state right off the bat that I only have a Classics 2006 Rodimus, so the basis of my opinions are on using that with this Protector set. And speaking of boxes, the Protector Armour is packaged in a nearly identical deal to that of the Commander Armors, clamshelled inside a giant gritty X. Once again, there's a big glossy page of instructions and a comic book at the front, and this comic's actually really well done art-wise, and it contains nothing from that preview comic that was shown on the Fansproject page. Bingza! Eek! It's pretty darn cool. There's also some instructions. This time, unlike the Crossfire set, the official toy has been fully blacked out again. And the instructions, if I were to have one little qualm, it's that they're almost a little bit too small. I had to sort of squint at some of these to figure out exactly what to do, but they are quite comprehensive nonetheless, and warn you about all kinds of things like, there are points of click here. There's also this thing at the back. I wonder who that is. 20,000 BC. Let's waste no time. Remove Rodimus's accessories from his vehicle mode, and then extend the rear wheels out. Next, you'll have to pull open the two side front panels of the Protector trailer, insert Rodimus inside, line up his own rear fins, and then close those panels carefully, making sure that you have both his rear fin and his rear wheel fitting into their designated positions. This isn't very hard to do, but you gotta be a little bit finessey about what you're doing the first couple times round. Once you've got all that done, behold Fansproject's imagining of our favorite space Winnebago. It follows a lot of the aesthetic cues of the Defender and the City Commander, which is that there are a lot of hard-ass angular lines. This series of toys can be best described as chunky personified. If that does not suit your aesthetic taste, then don't feel bad. But if it does, feel aroused. I particularly like that all the flame details are not only painted in, but also following hard, sculpted lines. It's also kind of cool that the flames on the sides actually match up with the side piping, so it looks like they're being ejected out of there, like this was some kind of crazy personal deco art project. The full thing rolls as well as it should. It helps that this rear wheel, when extended out, lines up with this new one, but it also helps that there are a huge pile of wheels underneath. We'll explain that later. Also, the gun in the back, you don't have to keep this flame here. I'm just showing it to you for the sake of showing it to you. I actually don't really like keeping it there myself. But you get your own official toy exhaust port on the Space Winnebago mode. So here's the one that I had to do, the Fansproject Season 3 Trio. City Commander, Protector, and the Warbot Defender. This is also a very expensive shot, so let me make things a little bit more realistic for some of you guys, and place him next to the specter of his lost commander. So if you're wondering how big this dude looks, he gets bigger than a Voyager when he has this giant pack sitting on his back. But I've kept you waiting long enough. Let's protect!
Once you've removed Rodimus, the transformation is a little bit more involved than City Commanders. There is still a large amount of parts leprosy, but nearly all those parts transform or at least have some moving components. Opening the trailer harkens back to G1 Rodimus, but the similarities end there for now. Unlocking the rear panels and folding down the central column leaves you with room to start removing pieces. The rear parts need to be carefully dislodged from their locking tabs. Just apply gentle pressures and be aware of the smaller friction tabs along the seam of the trailer walls. The chest piece is simple to slide away, but the arm extensions can take a bit of practice. Again, go slowly and with finesse the first few times until you're used to where the locking points are. It helps to reopen the side panels of the trailer too. When pulling out the rifle extension, the instructions themselves specify to do so slowly. Its storage plug is very tight. Just apply an even and controlled pressure to remove it, and try to avoid pulling sideways or diagonally. Swiveling the sides of the trailer was a nice touch and helps its own ancillary modes feel a little more unique, but we'll come back to that later. The rifle extension's handle can be tricky to pull out without good fingernails. Preparing Rodimus is quick and easy. You only have to fold away his hands and feet and position his arms as de facto shoulder pads. I really like how the boot pieces transform. It's simple but effective, with a flat panel folding in on itself multiple times with a little bit of precision. The arm extensions seemed fiddly at first, but are also quite basic. 3 bits swivel as the arm uncurls. Just take note of which direction to turn the fist and shoulder clamp for a return to trailer mode. Slide the helmet out of the chest piece, and you are ready for assembly. The boots are a much less frightening affair than City Commanders. The arm extensions can plug in quite quickly. However, it may take a few tries until you know precisely where they need to be to grip Rodimus's arm tires. The chest piece is the most finicky component. When pushing the chest into place, bear in mind that the yellow flames are meant to slide forward. The wing extensions glide on with just enough friction for a solid connection. Henkei owners may want to be gentle about doing this, but it does not feel like it would easily cause scuffing on a crazy Devi Predaking level. Crown him with his new cranium, and the protector is complete.
Fully combined and ready to defend, the Protector feels very much like a spiritual successor to the City Commander, and to a lesser degree the Defender. In his Protector armor, Rodimus has the same chunky, edgy aesthetic that he had in his Winnebago mode. Now again, if you don't like chunk to this degree, then no, this may not work out for you on an aesthetic level. But once again, this does hit me in a lot of the right places. I love sharp angles. This thing also goes to a lot of different places to make this as Rodimus-y as possible. He's got the Black Cavalier boots, he's got the enlarged spoiler, and in one really neat effect, the flames on his chest are actually protruding out, creating a semi-3D effect. Except that it's actually 3D, since it's physical plastic. The one sore point is that Rodimus's forearms are not that well hidden. They are a big foreign chunk on the back of the upper arm. However, the headlight shoulder pads do kind of make up for it because I love the way those look. Let me point out what I think will be the most controversial part of this, that being the head. Now, I think as a head sculpt, this is fine. I actually really appreciate that it has a bit more of a defined series of facial features than the City Commander. However, if you look at it from the wrong angle, that being if you really look for it from very strange angles and shine light on it in certain ways, you'll notice that the chin of Rodimus is down there on the base of his neck. That's because this head does not come down all the way onto the head, at least not in any way I can figure out. And I think I can see why, because if it was seated down all the way on top, he'd look like he has no neck. So the smaller Rodimus head is kind of being used as a neck. You can see that these circles on the sides of Rodimus's head seem to be worked in as a neck joint in the Protector sculpt, and in fact you can even use it as a pivot point to let him look up and down. Now, this is something that I think could annoy a lot of people, but let me just say, when you look at him from a natural viewing angle in natural lighting, and as you can see right here, the visible parts of Rodimus's head are completely enshadowed. So while I was very hesitant about this at first, I'm actually okay with it at the end of the day. One place where the City Commander always faltered was its hindrance of its wearer's articulation. Does the Protector suffer a similar fate? Let's find out. As stated previously, he actually has an upward-downward motion somewhat built into the head connection. He also has the swivel of Rodimus's own base noggin. The arms get quite an improvement, aside from having Rodimus's base ball joint on the shoulder, which allows for this directional movement and can actually allow for some inwards and outwards motions, though I wouldn't recommend it too much because this part bangs into things. There's also specialized joints in here, with their own outward motion, a bicep swivel. The elbow is only single jointed per se, but I think this might be an intentional double jointing here. It's a little bit low on the arm, and it's from the transformation, so it may not be on purpose, but it does help out if you want him to be holding his gun up close to his body or some such. He also has a wrist swivel, and overall his arms are a huge improvement over the base Rodimus toy. As Rodimus himself lacks a waist joint, there is nothing up here. The hips are more or less unfettered, though. Rodimus's hips have their own strange little limitations that do come into play here and there, but those aren't limited any further by the armor. Similarly, his knees, they're still the single-jointed, and on mine, somewhat loose knee hinge. Nothing added there, but on the ankles, this was, again, from the transformation, but I found it to be quite useful. You can have an ankle tilt. This tilt, it's a little bit hard to use because this is one of those joints that really likes to click into place. So you have to maneuver it kind of carefully, but with just enough careful coaxing, you can use it to have some flat-footed and wide-legged stances. I'd say this was intentional given that a specialized joint of the same type was built into the City Commander, and it does help out even if it is a bit tricky to use, because with that you can have him assume some pretty cool poses like such. And to me, he's much better at doing this than the City Commander was. Where the City Commander sort of hindered a lot of existing joints, this one takes a somewhat sparsely articulated figure, hinders none of his existing joints, and adds a whole bunch in the arms. The remainder of the Guardian trailer turns into a tank. You can even place a little pilot inside. I think this is a lot more effective than what City Commander's leftover bulk did. I love the giant crazy gun, but objectively this is a bit of a superior approach, and very homage to the original Rodimus Prime toy. Now its tank status is a little bit questionable because it does have wheels down there, but it also has a big block on the front. I'm assuming those wheels are just really powerful. On the bright side, there's a lot of them, so it makes rolly noises even if it's not really rolling. And hey, you can adjust the cannons if you like. It's a cool and effective thing. If this was the only thing that this stuff did, I'd say it's a little bit disappointing, but luckily, there is more than meets the eye. I have no idea how long I've been waiting to say that.
Looking pretty kooky tank!
Transforming a surprising amount, the tank mode can turn into a base mode, and in the process eject the redder and hot roddier reformatting of Carrier, formerly of the G3 trailer. One thing worth noting is that the little handles you fold out, the instructions actually say you might want to use a small object to get them out. I found I could still get them out with my fingernails, but you may have some problems without a little bit of artificial assistance. And hey, it kind of looks a lot like the top half of G1 Rodimus Prime's base mode with the little extension block here. Considering that it's balancing on one tiny foot, this thing's got some pretty good standing ability. And you can still put a little dude up here in the cockpit if you want, but I want to show you what else you can do with this. Taking hold of those tiny and highly inaccessible grips, the Protector can wield Guardian's base mode as a giant double-barreled turret with a vague crossbow motif. Again, this adds playability, this references an older toy. It's very much in the spirit of the Rod. And I really appreciate how many little moving parts are on this, because it does help it feel a lot less like the City Commander's giant brick gun. Oh right, there was that little Carrier dude, wasn't there? This little guy is full of wheels! He's got 12 of them, just like his previous iteration. However, he does not transform or change shape in any way. He just looks really cool. He also allows for several accessories to be plugged onto him for storage and for his own self-defense. When this peg on the back looks like this, it can hold a smaller peg, i.e. the 4mm, I believe, clip of Rodimus's gun. So that's all great, but what if you have a 5mm clip? Well, you just flip it over to the more solid-looking side, plug in one of them thicker gun handles, and now he's all ready to go with a much larger weapon on his back. Oh yeah, and this? You can actually just cram this back here. So now this little dude has his own little rocket boost. And a gun. Really, I like this iteration of a little Carrier dude. He looks threatening, he looks fast, he looks stylish, and darn it, you can stick that thing back there, because where on earth else were you going to stick it? The clear canopy also really helps. That engine-y thing inside looks neat. The Protector is an incredibly well-done successor to the City Commander armor. It takes what that did, and in my opinion improves on a lot of structural and functional points. There's no part of the armor connection that feels rickety or risky to me. The head sculpt's got a lot more life to it, though I've seen that some would disagree. The trailer leftovers do a slightly more homage-y thing in regards to the character that's being represented, and you get a little car. If you're into the aesthetic of City Commander and Defender, hard edges, chunk, extreme angles, then I think you'll dig this. But it definitely won't do very much to change your mind if you weren't into that stuff in the first place. In fact, I feel this one embraces it even more, with the solid and hard sculpted flames all over the place. I love it, but you might not. This figure is also great for continuing that somewhat short tradition of incorporating all of the original figure's accessories in some way. Personally, I think it's worth the price in terms of a third-party item. And if you really like Rodimus but haven't gotten into this scene yet, this may be the one to take you over the edge. But many will ask, what's the point of this with Masterpiece Rodimus on the horizon? Masterpiece Rodimus is an excellent representation of everything Rodimus Prime and Hot Rod. But in my opinion, this serves a different purpose. This allows that character to exist under the 2006 Classics aesthetic. Also, it's a lot more in scale, I think, with a lot of the Classics Universe 2 Generations Henkei Reveal the Shield United toys. So if you ask me, the reason to pick this up would be to have Rodimus represented at this scale and not the Masterpiece scale. If you're on limited funds, you'll probably have to choose, and that's up to you. If you can afford both and I'm on the fence about this, I think it's worth it myself. And hey, it may still have one secret hidden somewhere within its chassis. So, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus. I hope this review was informative to you in some way. And let's stand together, Hot Rodian brothers. For this truly is our time. Hey, don't forget about me. Ah!